When you think about two of the most loved and trusted celebrities, Will Smith and Tom Hanks are on the top of that list. There's article after article, blog after blog. There's songs and videos about how much people love Tom Hanks and Will Smith, how people universally love Tom Hanks and Will Smith. And they're very highly successful. These are the two of the most acclaimed and successful actors in Hollywood. And when you think about, all right, they're going to cast somebody as a hero or as a nice guy, as somebody, a protagonist in a movie, somebody that people will identify with, who will like, who will trust, who will root for, it's one of these two guys. I just completed a video about Jim Carrey and Bill Cosby, as well as about Will Smith. And you think about Jim Carrey being very likable and Bill Cosby being somebody who was known as America's Dad, who was very popular and well-liked. But neither of these two guys can touch Will Smith and Tom Hanks. So I was making that video yesterday, and I was covering how Will Smith made out with his son Jaden. And when I did that, I found out a whole bunch of other information that really creeped me out. This is a behavioral pattern with Will Smith, something that he knows is wrong. It's really kind of shocking. I didn't have the time to put it into that video. That video was already 40 minutes, so I decided to make a follow-up video. Now, I originally found out about this incident with Will Smith and his son Jaden from one of the viewers of the original Will Smith video. Said, there's this thing where he made out with his son, and I looked into it. And I don't know, that may be 5-6 months ago. And then very recently, somebody pointed out that Tom Hanks did a spoof video with Jimmy Kimmel about toddlers and tiaras. And if you think about it, there's probably no more creepy subject than toddlers and tiaras, because it gets into this pedophilia of young girls and the sexualization of young girls in a really creepy, dark way. So both of these things, Will Smith forcibly kissing his son on the lips and Tom Hanks doing a mocking video of toddlers and tiaras, really gets to the center of what I'm talking about, because of how well they're liked and respected and how creepy this subject matter is, how this is something that gets to the root of how they're poisoning the hearts and minds of the general public, and specifically young people. So this is one of the ways they're warping our internal worlds, degrading our internal worlds, what's in the inside of people, what they're making okay and what they're making acceptable, and how this is going to create a more dark and disturbed world in the future. So to start off with, Tom Hanks went on the Jimmy Kimmel Show. Now, I've covered a little bit about Jimmy Kimmel in the past and how he has done hatchet jobs on the anti-vaccine movement, on the gluten-free movement, on, I believe, GMOs. He has been a real shill for the New World Order. He seems just to have a real dark energy about him. And Tom Hanks comes on his show, and they're going to do some sort of setup for a gag that he's about to do. So Tom Hanks says his daughter wants to get into show business. Turns out this is not his real daughter. She's an actress. Most people who watch this are just going to assume this is his real daughter. I don't know which is creepier, him doing this with his own daughter or him doing this with a stranger. It's pretty creepy either way. And he introduces that this is going to be a segment where him and his daughter are going to be in a pageant, a toddlers and tiaras pageant. And it starts off and he says, my name is Tom Hanks, and I am super excited because me and my daughter Sophie are competing in the Miss Ultimate Sexy Baby Nevada pageant. And when it comes to awards, this is as big as it gets. Then his daughter comes up, she's age 6, and she says, I am Sophie Hanks, and I want to be Miss Ultimate Sexy Baby. Well, first of all, a lot of people say, well, this is just a spoof, and I've talked about this over and over again. You don't get to do this level of inappropriate behavior or any inappropriate behavior, and you don't get to sexualize young children in the guise of it being satire or sarcasm in a comedy sketch scene. Now, something that people don't really realize, and I've talked about this in many videos in the past, and I talk about how I worked with sex offenders and sexually reactive children as a counselor and a clinician. And what people don't realize about sexual abuse is that it isn't just about sexual behavior, but it's also about sexualizing a child with inappropriate material. Here's one definition right here. It says sexual abuse is when a child or young person is pressured or forced or tricked into taking any part in any kind of activity with an adult or a young person. That includes exposing genitals or sexual material to a child, talking to a child inappropriately, graphically, and explicitly about sex. And here's another example. Sexual abuse describes any incident in which an adult engages a minor in a sexual act or exposes the minor to inappropriate sexual behavior or material. So anytime an adult is exposing a child to inappropriate sexual material, which happens to pretty much every child that watches TV or is exposed to the internet, they get sexualized at an age before they're ready to handle it. And all this stuff with toddlers and tiaras and all these kinds of things is part of that. So this is one level of sexual abuse that people don't think about. But kids today are getting exposed to sexual material at a very young age when they're not able to handle it and process it. And when children get exposed to sexual material or any material of adult nature before they're ready to handle it, it causes trauma. And just because one thing is more severe or more intense, when you're talking about real hardcore sexual abuse where there's rape or incest or these sorts of things, those things are very, very traumatic. But some of these other things can be really traumatic to a very sensitive kid. It depends on the child and it depends on the person. But all of this stuff causes problems. And I've talked about this over and over in other videos. I'm not going to go into it here. But some of the coping mechanisms that children develop are very severe. And all children today are getting exposed to sexual material at a very young age. So just the fact that this video clip, this so-called comedy sketch with Tom Hanks, starts off with this girl saying, "I am Sophie Hanks and I want to be Miss Ultimate Sexy Baby." The fact that that's the title of the competition they're going to be in is already inappropriate and sexualizing of children. And this actress, this girl playing Tom Hanks' daughter, is being sexualized now. And people are laughing and giggling. And this, everyone loves Tom Hanks and they're thinking, well, this is okay. Tom Hanks is doing. This is not okay. This is not appropriate. These competitions aren't appropriate. And it gets much worse. So then they're sitting on the couch and Tom Hanks said, "Sophie and I did her first pageant when she was 3 months old." So this sexual behavior, the sexualization of a child, is happening at a very young age. I mean, really an extremely young age. And they're just laughing about it. It's a joke. Yeah, this is really funny. So it goes on from there. And then he shows the picture. Here she is. She got queened. You remember that, honey? Just dressing up a young child, a young baby like this. It's just this whole industry is so creepy. And that Tom Hanks is putting his comedic stamp of approval on this. And then he gets into a little argument. She has a little temper tantrum, and he's telling her how everything is great with this, and it's clear like he's the one that's really into it. So they're pitching that he's the really one that's into it. And then she says, "I think my daddy wants to be a pageant queen, but he can't." And this is, again, I've talked about this over and over again, how they love to effeminize men. Tom Hanks got his start on a show called Bosom Buddies. He made it into the national spotlight as an actor on this really bad sitcom. It was when I think I was in high school, 1980s. And he played a guy, there's two guys, and they were living in a female sorority, and they had to dress up like women and pretend they're women for a whole, I think the show lasted a season. So this is something that he's very familiar with, and he does a lot of effeminate behavior, again, pitching this thing as emasculating men. And then he's going and showing her how to walk and then twirl the baton. And then he's walking with her and he says, "Sexy hands." So he's showing her how to walk with sexy hands. Again, sexualizing young children, effeminizing the male figure. It's a package deal that's going on here. And then he gets really upset because you're not doing it right. He says, sexy feet, sexy feet, sexy feet. And he repeats it 3 times. Now, this is something that I have not ever covered in any of my videos, and I don't know why, but there is 3 types of intelligence. We have the intelligence of the mind. There's the gut intelligence. There's a lot of nerve endings in your gut. And there's the intelligence of the heart. And there's, of course, the electromagnetic field associated with the heart. So a human being has an emotional intelligence, a feeling intelligence, and a mental intelligence. And then people talk about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the superconscious mind that was presented by Freud years and years and years ago. So we have levels of our consciousness and levels of our being. And when you repeat things at least 3 times, it penetrates deeper into these unconscious levels. And this is something that they do over and over again. I'll talk about that in a future video. I'm not going to cover that anymore here. But this is another level of creepy. And then he catches her eating a cookie. And so he sprays water in her face. And she says, honey, swimsuit competition. So then he is, this is covering the eating disorder factor that so many women, young women and girls suffer from. And this body consciousness thing, as well as the fact she's in a swimsuit competition at 6 years old. You know, this is just, again, when they use humor to mask something that should be cast out of our society. This shows how decadent and twisted and sexually perverted our society is. And then he's doing her makeup. Again, this level of creepiness that goes along with this stuff. It's just, I just want to get through this section. He says, when doing makeup, some people say less is more, but I say more is more. This creepy, painting these girls up like prostitutes, it's just really bad. Then her wig shows up and he puts the wig on her, and then he starts to cry and he says, just like a Bratz doll. So that he is a father who wants his 6-year-old girl to look like a Bratz doll. I mean, what more can you say about this? And then they show up at the competition. So this idea, the Miss Ultimate Sexy Baby Nevada pageant contestants, bringing your kid to Las Vegas, just even in a sketch type situation. This is a really, really... Okay, so they show up at the competition and it just gets creepier and creepier as it goes along. He's, just got to look at what this poor young girl looks like. And so again, here she is. It's with this stranger, and I mean, where are her parents in this? You know, this is her big acting break. I mean, what's going on here? I think about this. Dressing your child up like this, just using the word sexy with children. I've talked about this over and over again. There are lots of videos about how there's the sexualization of children. Like, I was getting nauseous while watching this video. And if you remove the laugh track, if you watch it in silence or you watch it without the laugh track, and you just watch what's going on here, this is like appalling behavior. It's really horrible stuff. And so then he goes in and says this to her. Remember what we talked about. Make daddy love you, sexy baby. And she answers back, sexy baby. She affirms what he's saying. And then he affirms her back and says, sexy baby. So look at how creepy that is. Again, the repeating it of 3 times. And then she gets up and does her, these kids do these horrible sexualized dances. There's lots of videos on this. I don't like to cover this stuff. Like I said, it's just really dark stuff. I mean, when you're doing this to your young children, especially your young women, turning them into this, devaluing them. So this is stuff as adults isn't really cool. It's not good self-esteem building things. And then Tom Hanks is in the audience doing her sexualized dance. The audience is clapping and laughing. So it's just this horrible. And then they're playing the Poison song, the glamour band Poison, one of the worst inartistic bands of all time. And at the end of the song, the singer says, talk dirty to me, and the girl says it. They cut off the song and this girl says, talk dirty to me. So the 6-year-old girl just being sexualized on stage. Tom Hanks, Jimmy Kimmel, all these people are accountable for this. It's not appropriate, and people watching this are saying, wow, Tom Hanks has signed off on this. He's making this okay by making people laugh at it. This is something that's accepted. I'm not talking about it being illegal. It shouldn't be culturally accepted. It should be something that we throw out of our culture that's completely inappropriate, something that no parent should ever want to engage their children in. And then Tom Hanks echoes back, talk dirty to you, and he's laughing hysterically. He's just how pleased he is with his daughter. The audience is, the Jimmy Kimmel audience is laughing. And then she comes off the stage and he says, sexy baby, you are such a sexy baby. I am proud of you. And again, so this is a girl that isn't his. This is some actress he met, and this is a level of creepiness. I talked about this with Full House. This is not appropriate. Just because you're pretending something, just because you're hiding it behind the guise of comedy and acting, it doesn't make inappropriate behavior okay. And then so from there, they're going to announce the winner. And of course, Jimmy Kimmel's there with his daughter, and he's praying that she wins. And it turns out that the winner is Ron Howard's daughter. So Ron Howard, another lovable, trusted, likable guy, somebody that people universally like. Everybody likes Opie. He's made all these movies, made great movies with Tom Hanks, somebody that's people generally like and trust. And he's up there signing off on this thing as well. Of course, Tom Hanks is going to be a bitter loser, the way that they're going to spin this to cover all of it. And this again, just really, really creepy. Tom Hanks mocks the girl, because he's a sore loser. And I don't know really what else to say about this. It's just something that is incredibly creepy and really despicable and disgusting if you think about it. There's one more point here. Very young children from the ages of, 0 to 7 have zero sexual energy. And then from the ages from, 7 to 12, 13, 14, their sexual energy slowly comes into play. And in a natural society, in an Aboriginal society, then you get into maybe the 16s and the 17s, and then you have their sexual energy starting to really awaken, and then going through their 18s, their late teens, and their 20s, their early 20s. But at no point is it appropriate to even suggest to an innocent child or to even put on them the idea that they are sexy and that they should be exposed to sexual material and be a part of any kind of sexual activity, because they are not ready for it and there isn't anything in them that should be activated at this particular time, on a physical level, on a psychological level, and a social level. And it is full-blown activated now in our society, and it is causing widespread damage, loneliness, fear, trust issues, the loss of innocence. The list goes on and on. We cannot really calculate how the children growing up today are suffering because of this inappropriate exposure to sexual energy and sexual activity. It's just something that they should never be a part of. And they are thrust into this situation now, whether they're sexualized by the way their parents dress them, or by their expectations of their parents, or the material they watch and are exposed to on TV shows, movies, and the internet. But the loss of innocence, especially these young children under the age of 7, but all children, is very damaging, and none of us can really calculate how bad it is and the effect it has on these children. It's really, really, really creepy when you work in the field with sexual abuse and you see the younger children that are sexually abused and end up in these treatment centers. It tears your heart out. It's unbelievably painful watching this toddlers and tiaras thing. I'm just glad this voiceover is over. Can't wait to finish this video. It's just something it's a level of satanic behavior, devilish behavior that just watching it as an adult is traumatic. And so never mind what it's doing to these children that are involved in this activity. Okay, so let's move on to Will Smith. So I covered this yesterday, and Will Smith was in Thailand with his son Jaden Smith. And he says that he wants to express his love for his son. And he wants to do this by kissing his son on the mouth. And he starts to do this, and Jaden fights it off. It goes on, 30 seconds, where they're wrestling with each other. Jaden almost escapes a couple times. And then finally, Will Smith overpowers him, and Jaden goes limp. You can see when he's basically going into a submissive position, where he just goes completely limp and lets it happen, and Will kisses him on the mouth for about 2 or 3 seconds. Completely inappropriate and creepy, and it has nothing to do with how much Will Smith loves his son. It wasn't a show of affection. He was clearly humiliating his son sexually. I don't know what Jaden is there, 14, 15, 16 years old. And then a couple months later, a year later, Jaden says that he likes wearing dresses as a fashion statement. Well, yeah, go figure. So when someone pointed this out to me, 5 months ago, I briefly looked at it, but I never saw it in detail like I saw it yesterday when I rewatched the video. And seeing the way his son tries to fight him off, and then he goes limp, he submits to it. People who have been sexually abused as a children, women who have been raped, and get into that situation where there is a physical struggle, and then they get overpowered and they just go limp, they disassociate, they disappear from their bodies, and they just allow the abuse to happen because they know they can't do anything about it. And that's what it looks like when this is going on. And then there was another piece that I didn't see before that I saw yesterday that was covered by this, I guess it's an online sort of entertainment magazine called Hip Hollywood. And the reporter, or the so-called reporter, interviews Jaden Smith about this incident. And Jaden Smith says, this happens all the time. So this isn't something that is a random incident that the guy's doing to get promotion or publicity for the movie. This is an ongoing, continuous behavior that happens out in public, which sexually humiliating his son in public, as well as in private, which is doubly creepy. And Jaden Smith is indicating this is an ongoing behavior. So then I looked over on the sidebar, and there was a compilation video, and there were a number of other incidents that were caught on camera. In a awards ceremony, I forget what the name of the first movie they were in, The Pursuit of Happiness, I believe was the title of the movie, and it shows that they were given an award, and they're up on stage, and Will Smith manhandles his, 8 or 9-year-old son at the time, and gives him a kiss, a longer kiss, on the mouth, on the red car, on the stage where they've just accepted the award, and that is also really creepy. Again, the well-liked and well-respected and well-trusted Will Smith. So there's actually a few more times. I'm just going to cover one of these, and that was on The Ellen Show. And what's interesting about this is how Ellen played into this behavior and basically approved it. She is, in fact, the one who brought it up. She's talking about the time that they were, I guess, in Thailand, and this kiss happened. And she says, I understand you purposely tried to embarrass Jaden as much as possible. And that kicks off Will to try to kiss him again. And he says, I love him, Ellen. And he, again, tries to manhandle and maul his son and try to overpower him and kiss him. And Jaden falls off the couch, and he's kissing him on the back. And, really embarrassing, but totally sexually inappropriate. This is just really creepy. And while he's doing all this, Ellen's smiling away. She thinks it's great. And then comes back and she's laughing. Now here's another well-liked personality, somebody who's given a favorable narrative, a favorable brand, and somebody who's very liberal, would be anti-abuse. And think about what Ellen's position on abuse would be, sexual abuse and this type of abuse. And here she is laughing away, encouraging this incredibly dysfunctional and abusive behavior, sexually abusive behavior. It's not normal to kiss your son on the lips, especially if he's a teenager. It's not normal for a father to kiss his son on the lips or a mother to kiss her son on the lips when they're a teenager. It's really creepy, And Will Smith is making a big deal out of this, and so is Ellen. And it actually gets a lot worse, because when Will Smith is done, he's laughing, Ellen's laughing, everyone's laughing in the audience. And he says, when you have kids and you love them and are proud of them, you just want to kiss them in the mouth sometimes. Now, yeah, if you're a predator or pedophile or sex offender, because that's not a normal inclination to want to kiss your children, your teenage children particularly, but any of them, on the mouth because you're proud of them. So that is something that is deeply twisted. And then Jaden goes on to say, it happens a lot. It happens quite a bit. And then Ellen says, and she thinks this whole thing's hysterical and the audience is laughing, you should be grateful that you have a dad like that loves you like that. Now there is the other adult that should be maybe, I don't know, reporting this to child services or saying, that's really not appropriate and this is abusive and sexually abusive. She's telling the abused kid something that Ellen would have a huge problem about. No, don't think you're being abused. Be grateful your dad kisses you on the mouth and does these sorts of things. You're the problem for not accepting that you have such a great dad that wants to sexually abuse you. So you see how twisted this is. You have these two people that are embedded in this demonic system. You have two A-list entertainers who have sold their souls to the devil, so to speak. And they are ganging up on a victim. Now, if you think about Ellen as being a part of the liberal community, a part of the feminist community, anti-gun, anti-abuse, anti-hostility, anti-violence. And here is a situation where clearly is inappropriate. It's not something that she should be a part of, and yet she's cheering this thing on and demonizing the victim. She's talking down this kid and saying, yeah, you should just go along with this. You should allow your father to kiss you on your mouth and be grateful for it. So see how twisted this is. Because if you think about the demographic and where Ellen would be, where she would fit in to this narrative, this is the kind of thing that she would have issue with. This is the kind of thing that these types of people would talk about and say, this is horrible. But when it's the impoverished people living in the inner city, or so-called rednecks, people living in the country, uneducated people, it's one thing. But it's one of their group, somebody who's a celebrity, somebody who's well-liked, somebody who's part of the club, and some kind of agenda that's going on here that their handlers want to project out there to the world. All of a sudden, when this stuff is right in front of them, they completely support it. And this is where I get in. They talk about it having layers and how this is affecting everybody. They say one thing, but their actions speak very differently about how they really feel. But it even gets worse than that, because Will Smith clearly knows what he's doing, because the tables are turned and he has the same situation. I got that coming up in just a second. And also, he has another son that's also he likes to kiss on the mouth. But there's another piece here, and this is the picture here is from a music video done by Will Smith's daughter Willow when she was 12 years old, called The Summer Fling, that portrays her as a 12-year-old girl with a boy that I think is 16 or 17, looks quite a bit older, in some sort of adult-type sexual relationship, as she has this, really auto-tuned song that she sings. And imagine, again, you go to your average father and you say, your 12-year-old daughter says, I want to make a music video called Summer Fling where I'm going to engage in adult-level sexual behavior and adult-level relationship. What do you think about that? And what do you think their response would be? And what's the appropriate response to that? So this is where Will Smith is in his life in a variety of different ways. His son wearing dresses, kissing his son on his mouth, and allowing his daughter or encouraging his daughter to engage in sexual activity at a very young age. And here is another definition for sexual abuse, something that everybody should know about. Sexual abuse is defined as sexual contact by force, trickery, or bribery where there is an imbalance in age, size, power, or knowledge, sexual abuse usually doesn't require physical force, as the adult can pressure, threaten, trick, and coerce a child to engage in sexual activity. So now in the second piece, I want to cover the imbalance in age, size, power, or knowledge. Now, Will Smith, when he is making out with his two sons, when he's trying to kiss his two sons, certainly has a huge advantage in terms of course, he's their father, so he's an authority figure, much older, bigger, more powerful, and has way more knowledge. So this qualifies in all those categories. And you can't say, well, all right. And so going to this other piece, there is another interview here with Hip Hollywood. And it starts off with this reporter saying, Will Smith isn't just reserving mouth kisses for his son Jaden. That's how it starts off. Think about that. Let me read that sentence again. Will Smith isn't just reserving mouth kisses for his son Jaden. Why is that sentence even in existence? And this woman's supposed, I guess, Entertainment Tonight type's reporter, but that should be a red flag, just that statement alone. Well, it turns out that Will Smith was married to another woman. And here's what they say. Hip Hollywood sat down with Will Smith's ex-wife, Sherry Fletcher, mother of his oldest son, Trey, and learned Papa Will loves to plant a wet one on Trey as well. Of course he does. And then it goes on to say, Will is pretty affectionate. This is the Sherry Fletcher talking. Will is pretty affectionate. Yeah, he, right on the mouth. You could imagine these boys hate it. They're like, but I think they really love it. Sherry added, she does not feel the affection is weird. Of course she would say that. But of course it is. And of course they hate it. It's unnatural, uncomfortable, sexually abusive, and weird for a father to be kissing his teenage boys on the mouth. So of course they hate it. They don't love it. That's just ridiculous. Ask any boy of that age if he would like his father to kiss him on the mouth. They would say no. And so the problem with this is, and again, this is not about affection or love. And they keep on trying to say that it's about affection or love when it clearly isn't. This is about physical dominance. Sometimes sexual behavior, sexual abuse. We see this in prisons. You see it in all kinds of different environments. In the natural world, sometimes animals engage in sexual activity to show who's dominant. Female goats will mount each other to show which one is dominant. It isn't about sexual activity. The mounting means I am the dominant one. This is why dogs will mount each other or mount people, trying to show that they're dominant. So this is something that happens in the natural world, and it happens with people as well. And so this is what Will Smith was doing. It's clearly his way of showing dominance. And I know this because he knows this. Because then there's another report from Hip Hollywood. All of these things were in the sidebar. So all of this stuff has been out there for a while. They've been covering this. And there is some sort of entertainment type news person. Will Smith is at some sort of event, maybe a movie premiere, I don't know what. And this entertainment person tries to manhandle Will Smith and kiss him on the mouth. He kisses him on the cheek. He's trying to force his way, kisses him on the ears, trying to get in there and try to kiss him. And Will Smith does not like it at all. First, he pushes the guy off, and then he says stuff. He said some stuff to him. He yells at him. He says, come on, man. And he says, what the hell is your problem, buddy? And he backhands him across the face. And so this is from another angle. The same thing happens. This is him slapping him across the face. Clearly not happy with that. The same type of manhandling he did on his son Jaden, this other guy's trying to do on him, and Will Smith is not happy. He doesn't like to be dominated by this. He says he tried to kiss me on the mouth, kiss me on my mouth. This joker, he's lucky I didn't sucker punch him. And Will's clearly rattled. Now leave the link in the video box, in the description box for all these types of things if you really want to go through it yourself. It isn't happy watching. But anyway, Will Smith knows that this is about sexual dominance. He doesn't like to be dominated this way. Most women will know this. Some men will know this. When you encounter somebody with deviant sexual energy, with dark sexual energy, and they touch you, it's creepy. Even if you're around these people, it can be creepy, depending how sensitive you are. Women get groped and touched like this all the time, and it just resonates in your body. Having worked in treatment centers with sex offenders, we would be in group therapy, and there's a wide range of kids who are sex offenders. Some of them engaged in semi-normal behavior, was just a little bit abusive, and there are other kids who are hardcore pedophiles. And when the hardcore pedophiles talked about their sexual offenses, they would talk about it in a way that would creep everybody out. The counselors, the staff, the other clients. It's just really creepy. And when people have that type of energy, they try to dominate you sexually. It feels bad. And Will Smith didn't like it when it was done to him. You can see the video clip, see how rattled he was. But clearly it's something that he's trying to impose on his sons, which is really weird. So you have these two guys, in Tom Hanks and Will Smith, maybe the two most likable celebrities that are out there, ones who are given this really positive narrative, and they are out there doing damage to people's internal worlds. People trust them. They see them engaging in these types of activities. This kind of pedophilia that goes on in toddlers and tiaras, where these young women are sexualized and put in these really creepy, inappropriate outfits and all this kind of stuff. And a father basically engaging in sexual activity on the air with his children. And people are laughing about it, saying, well, if Will Smith and Tom Hanks are doing, must be all right. And it gets normalized. It's things that are now introduced into the world. Oh, Tom Hanks does this or Will Smith does it. Can't be all bad. They're endorsing these things. And it goes to show you, here are two supposed like megastars. And I got to wonder how much this is just forced on them, and this is scripted for them by their handlers. And no matter how successful you think you are, these guys can always say, hey, guess what? You're going to go out there and start making out with your sons. You're going to put your son in a dress, or putting your daughter in some music video. If you don't like it, then give us a blood sacrifice. One of them's got to die or something. Because that's what you get when you have satanic people, devil-worshipping people, evil people that are connected to dark energy running your entertainment system, your financial system, and your government. And that's what we're seeing here. And we see how they're using these celebrities to poison everybody's minds and bring our morality and our humanity down to an all-time low.